I don't mean to scare you. No, wait, maybe I do mean to scare you. If Trump returns to the White House, you can kiss these freedoms goodbye that we all take for granted. And elections, forget about it. That's over. That's done. If he gets in, I can tell you right now, he will never leave.
That was Academy Award-winning actor Robert De Niro destroying Trump outside the Manhattan courtroom as Trump's criminal trial comes to a close. And this is D Night from the Part of the Insurrection podcast. As I was saying, Trump's criminal trial is racing toward its conclusion. As I record this, I think Todd Blanche, Trump's attorney, has finished his closing arguments, much to the chagrin of Judge Merchan. However, he did note for the jury that a guilty verdict might result in Trump facing jail time, a big no-no. The jury's not supposed to factor that into their decision. But beyond that, one of my favorite actors of all time, Robert De Niro, cut an ad for the Biden campaign to help ensure his chances of winning in November. And also, as part of that ad campaign, held a press conference in Manhattan right outside of the courtroom where Trump's trial is currently taking place. And apart from totally destroying Trump, he took a couple of shots at a few of Trump's crazy supporters.
I mean, this is really, even these people over here are it's kind of crazy. It's really crazy. And this thing, Donald Trump has created this. He should be telling them not to do this. But he's just, he wants to sow total, he wants to sow total chaos.
De Niro, a native New Yorker, then proceeds to compare Trump to the terrorists who attacked the Twin Towers on 9/11, although in this case, Trump is a homegrown terrorist.
This is my neighborhood, downtown New York City. I grew up here and feel at home in these streets. I feel comfortable. The Twin Towers fell just over here, just over there. This part of the city was like a ghost town, but we vowed we would not allow terrorists to change our way of life.
De Niro then has a Kendrick Lamar-like moment where he essentially says that Trump is not like us, then calls him a clown.
I don't know where he belongs, but he certainly doesn't belong here. We New Yorkers used to tolerate him when he was just another grubby real estate hustler masquerading as a big shot, a two-bit playboy lying his way into the tabloids, pretending to be a spokesperson for himself. He was calling it as himself for himself, to fool the press into inflating his net worth. A clown. But this city is pretty accommodating. We make room for clowns. We have them all over the city. People who do crazy things in the street, we tolerate it. It's part of the city, it's part of the culture. But not a person like Trump who will eventually run the country.
De Niro then proceeds to explain how Trump supporters have fallen for a ruse and then elaborates on his motivations for joining the Biden campaign.
But around the country, people who didn't know him as we did started to support him. They bought into his bullshit. Trump bought their votes with outrageous lies and empty promises. He got the most religious evangelicals to applaud a sinner who bragged about sexual assault, and who, just a couple of blocks from here, a jury found him liable for sexual abuse. Somehow he even got self-styled patriots to support a man who called for terminating the Constitution, and on January 6th rallied an angry mob to threaten democracy, leaving death and destruction in its wake. That's why I needed to be involved and wanted to be involved in the new Biden-Harris ad, because it shows the violence of Trump and reminds us that he'll use violence against anyone who stands in the way of his megalomania and greed.
De Niro then goes on about how Trump is a weak little bitch for all intents and purposes. He didn't use those exact words, but I'll use them on his behalf, in explaining how Trump is not willing to do any dirty work himself and instead relies on others to carry out misdeeds on his behalf.
But it's a coward's violence. You think Trump ever threw a punch himself or took one? This guy who ran and hid in the White House bunker when there were protesters outside? No way. And now he's promising to use our own military to attack U.S. citizens. That's the tyrant. That's the tyrant he's telling us he'll be. And believe me, he means it.
De Niro then goes on about how scores of unserious people use their political influence to gain power and become dictators to commit atrocities, and how the time to stop them is before they come into power.
We'd forgotten the lessons of history that showed us other clowns who weren't taken seriously until they became vicious dictators. With Trump, we have a second chance, and no one is laughing now. This is the time to stop him by voting him out once and for all. Yesterday was Memorial Day. It's a good time to reflect on how Americans fought and died so that we may enjoy the freedoms guaranteed to us by a democratic government. A government that, as President Lincoln said, of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Under Trump, this kind of government will perish from the earth.
I'll let Robert De Niro tell you how to save our democracy.
I hope this new ad campaign reaches outside the bubble to remind supporters of what a danger he is to our lives. This is not a threat. This is a reality. And that's why I've joined the Biden-Harris campaign, because the only way to preserve our freedoms and hold on to our humanity is to vote for Joe Biden for president.
I think one of the most important items on the list of priorities for the Biden campaign was to enlist the officers who protected the Capitol on January 6th to come out and campaign on behalf of protecting our democracy and protecting our freedoms. And if you notice there, Robert De Niro has been flanked on both sides by former Capitol police officers Michael Fanone and Harry Dunn, and he does, in fact, give them the credit that they richly deserved for their heroics in protecting our democracy and saving our Congress from assassination on January 6th.
On January 6th, while Republican lawmakers despicably tried to keep the loser Trump, in the White House, and Trump-inspired insurrectionists stormed the Capitol, brave men and women from law enforcement put their lives on the line to defend this country. Our democracy. They are the true heroes. These guys are the true heroes. They stood and put their lives on the line for these lowlives, for Trump.
The Trump supporter then heckled the two former officers, but was quickly shut down by Robert De Niro. And I just like to point out how funny it is that Trump supporters are all back the blue and thin blue line right up until the point where it's politically inconvenient. Nonetheless, I am glad to have the ever-talented and thoughtful Robert De Niro out campaigning on behalf of President Biden and against the dangers of Trump. And as he said, he takes the threats that Trump poses to our democracy extraordinarily seriously. And you should as well. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so already. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up for us. That helps the algorithm. And if you could, leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you'd like, you can find me on my personal podcast, Pardon the Insurrection, available everywhere that podcasts are found and also on YouTube.